Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, USC has got another five-star phenom, and he's going to be a terrific player. We're probably going to see it this year. And the big question I've got is, when's he going to transfer, and where will he transfer to? Because we know if there's one thing about South Carolina, when they get a big playmaker, they develop him, he usually takes off and heads off to a bigger school and turns South Carolina kind of into a developmental school or like a farm club.
How dare you!
And I know that's frustrating for South Carolina fans to hear, but look, I'm just telling you the truth. It's how it's been. And I'll give you some prime examples. Marshawn Lloyd, terrific running back. He was, in my opinion, one of the best running backs in the SEC. And he played for the Gamecocks in 21 and 22. He averaged 5.2 yards per carry in 2022. As you can see, he only played 9 games. He got hurt towards the end of the season and then and wasn't able to participate. But then he transferred to USC out in California, averaged 7 yards a carry, and also caught quite a few passes and got drafted in the NFL. And he's going to be a very good running back in the pros for many years, barring some injury. And this is a typical example of South Carolina, and they needed a running back. They didn't have a running back to speak of. They just kind of had to do the best they could once Marshawn Lloyd left. And I guess he just wasn't getting the money that he felt like he needed to get. And that's tough when you've got your best playmaker or your best running back who leaves over money. But that seems to be what's happening with South Carolina on a regular basis. Another example is Jaheim Bell. He wound up being the #1 tight end in the transfer portal. And he was kind of a jack of all trades. Not only did he play tight end, he also ran the ball for him a lot because, again, they had running back issues at South Carolina, which doesn't make a lot of sense. South Carolina is loaded with great talent. You would think they could get a running back out of that state or out of another state. Anyway, Jaheim Bell, his stats in 2021, he had a really good year. He had almost 500 yards, and he ran the ball a little bit. And then in 2022, they didn't use him quite as much. He had 25 receptions, but look how much he ran the ball. He ran the ball 73 times, so they were using him a bunch in both places. Then he goes to Florida State. He has a better year, 503 yards, averages over 12 yards per catch, and they didn't use him hardly at all to run the ball because Florida State has running backs. And that's one of the reasons that he left South Carolina. He didn't want to be a running back. He wanted to be a tight end. He's in the NFL now. So that's another terrific player that was a playmaker that they lost because of not being able to use him properly because of a shortcoming in running backs or because of money. Then look what happened this year. Juice Wells, I think he was a preseason All-American. Everybody thought he was going to blow up because he'd already had such a great year the year before. And as you look at Juice Wells' career, he was at James Madison. He had a huge year in 2021, 83 catches, 1,200 yards. Just absolutely slaughtered it, 15 touchdowns. Then in 22, he moved up a notch to SEC play and still had a terrific season. 68 catches, almost 1,000 yards, 13-yard average, 6 touchdowns, and he was a preseason All-American going in 2023 where he got injured. And I believe he got hurt in the first game. He was having a good game. And then again, injury started kind of being an issue. And we've noticed there's been kind of a pattern at South Carolina. When somebody gets injured, and maybe they're not happy about something, sometimes it takes a little longer for them to come back. I think we kind of saw that a little bit with Marshawn Lloyd, and there was a lot of rumors that that was the case with Juice Wells. Well, obviously he went to Ole Miss in the transfer portal, and now he's going to be their #1 wide receiver with Jackson Dart. So that's 3 big-time playmakers all transferred out of South Carolina, which brings us to today. And that's Nick Harbor. This guy was a big-time 5-star. He was rated the #1 athlete in the country. He's a wide receiver. He's a giant. The dude is 6'5", 240 pounds, and he runs a 10.12 100-meter dash. Just to give you some reference to that, Tyreek Hill, who's considered the fastest man in the NFL, ran a 10.19. So he ran it faster than Tyreek Hill, who is probably 50 pounds, maybe 60 pounds lighter than Nick Harbor at 240 pounds. This guy could be unstoppable. At 6'5" and that kind of speed, that guy should absolutely kill it this year. He had a nice, solid freshman year. They didn't use him a ton, but he had about, I think it was 200 or 300 yards of receptions. Yeah, here you go. 12 receptions for right at about 200 yards, 16-yard average, 1 touchdown. So he just kind of got his feet wet his freshman year. And obviously with these kind of stats, I would expect him to have a huge breakout season as sophomore year. And he's qualified for the preliminaries of the Olympics, which is amazing. And here you'll see Shane Beamer discuss this.
I know it would be really, really cool for our university, for our football program, for our track program, but more importantly for Nick. I know how passionate he is about track. He's a great young man, so humble as well. So I'm hoping it happens. Now, it wouldn't be great from a football standpoint because of the amount of time that he would miss with football. But he and I have talked about it. We met in my office at the end of spring practice, and I told him that, man, if you get the chance to run in the Olympics, that is like so cool and something that would be really, really awesome for him and our entire university. So
Shane's not going to stand in the way of him possibly going to the Olympics, but I think this guy's going to have a breakout season. And if he does, my question is, what team will he transfer to? Now, Florida State loves to go in and kind of raid South Carolina and treat them as a farm club. And again, I'm sorry, South Carolina fans. I know you don't like that term, but it's just kind of become that. And I'm going to tell you what's creaking you big time. It's two things. One's a short-term problem, one's a long-term problem. The short-term problem is the Burger King, Dabo Swinney. Dabo is a real problem for South Carolina because he's had so much success there and he's kind of stole the limelight from you. I call him a short-term problem because he's not going to be there forever. You know, what would be nice for you is if a team would come and get him, but he's screwing up so much in the transfer portal with all this old-fashioned, I'm not going to allow anybody to come onto my team. It's from the portal, which is one of the reasons why they're failing the last couple of years.
I'm a grumpy old man. I don't like everything the way it is now compared to the way it used to be.
But he's in the ACC. He's going to continue to win at a nice clip, and he gets all the attention. He also gets most of the money from South Carolina because he's won so much. And South Carolina should be getting the lion's share of the money. They're the namesake of the state. The University of South Carolina ought to be getting the lion's share of the money and attention in the state of South Carolina. But Clemson has kind of pushed you out of the way. That's the second problem. Clemson. For whatever reason, they're the big dog in the state of South Carolina. It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. It'd be like if Auburn was the big dog in Alabama. That's obviously not the case. It doesn't make any sense. It'd be like Georgia Tech being the big dog in Georgia. But anyway, that's the two major problems at South Carolina. Y'all have got a ton of great athletes to recruit in the state, but lack of money, obviously in NIL, and then Clemson taking up a lot of oxygen in the room is a real problem for South Carolina. And it's going to continue. You're going to continue to kind of be a farm club until that's solved.
Marsha!
You've got to get a source of money to build up your NIL, and you need Clemson to come down to earth.
Sure, Jan.
Which, with this transfer portal nonsense that Dabo's doing, that could very well happen. But you've got to solve the money issue with NIL. You've got to get some more money, or you're going to keep losing these blue chip players that you develop into these terrific players, and then they take off. And that really hurts you when you lose those difference makers. Having Marshawn Lloyd would have made a big difference for South Carolina. Having Juice Wells would make a big difference for South Carolina because those are, guys that can score touchdowns and that are really tough matchups for other defenses. But anyway, unfortunately, this is why South Carolina can't have nice things. So we'll see what happens with Nick Harbor. I fully expect him to have a great year. I just can't imagine anybody can match up with him with that speed and that size. Who's going to be able to handle him? I mean, you basically got a defensive edge lineman with wide receiver speed going out in the open field. He can get way above any safety. Cornerbacks are too small to deal with him. He's an impossibility. So anyway, we'll see how he plays this year. I expect a big year, and then I think he'll probably head off to Florida State or USC or Ole Miss.
I'm your huckleberry. Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like somebody just walked over your grave.
We'll see how it goes, but anyway, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but enjoy the this phenom for 1 year. And then, like I said, he'll probably leave. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let us know we'll continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, hit this little button right here. It won't cost you a dime. Helps me out. And right over here is the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. In South Carolina, who knows? Maybe Clemson will pull back down and you guys will be the #1 dog again at some point like it was when you had Steve Spurrier. You never know. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.